Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing good today. Looking forward to jumping into a good lesson. I'm going to wrap up this four-part series that I've walked us through this month on things to do as you begin a new year. And really, it's just things to do, period. But sometimes it's good during the changeover to a new year or a new season, a new cycle. It's a good time to recalibrate. And so this is part 4, so let's jump right into it. And I've entitled it, Trust God and Work Like the Devil for Our Lord. So I'll explain that in just a minute. Hang in there with me. Let's review real quick. The first lesson was first, stop, go directly to reflection. And of course, that was a play off Monopoly. Stop, go directly to jail. We don't want to do that, but if you don't spend time to reflect, you'll end up in the proverbial jail a lot of times. It's the old thing when you pull out your gun, ready, fire, and if you don't aim first, and that's really what I'm talking about. And I gave us 3 questions that are really kind of along the same line, but they're 3 separate questions, and I ask them regularly. What do I see? What do you see for your life? What do you see for your church? What do you see for this year? What do you see for this weekend? And then the second question is, what do I desire? That gets a little deeper. And that has to do with your ambition. And if you'll remember, you go back and listen to this lesson or that lesson, I don't beat people up for having ambition. A false modesty, trying to pretend we're not ambitious and don't have desires. We're just fooling ourselves and setting ourselves up for failure. God can take even an ungodly ambition, or none of our ambitions are perfectly pure, but if we'll give it to Him, delight yourself in the Lord, and He'll give you the desires of your heart. And what He's doing while you're delighting yourself in Him, He is purifying, He is perfecting, He is sanctifying your desires, and then He'll give them to you. And so, what do I desire? State it, identify it, know what it is, go for it. And then this is more day to day, but it has to do with executing on what you see, on what you desire. And that is, what does a win look like? Before that meeting, can you articulate what does a win look like? That meeting, when it's over, the people that I'm meeting with will know it's a win. What does a win look like for this sermon? What does a win look like for this month? What does a win look like for this season of fasting I'm going into that we do a lot at the first of the year? And so that's a question that you're constantly asking. Before you fire, aim. What do I see? And the more clear you are, the better the chances are that you will succeed. What do I desire? What does a win look like? So it's a vitally important message, a lesson. If we don't get that, then we're just running around in the dark. So I encourage you to go back, maybe listen to that on a regular basis. But anyway, then the second lesson, once we see something, then we're ready to go. Oh, no, wait a minute. I entitled the second one, Start, All Systems Go. All right? This is counterintuitive, and I think this is going to be the one lesson. So far, it's the longest lesson to spend more time, and probably the most boring lesson because it's stuff that we don't like to hear. But I would encourage you to go back. This is where the big hiccup comes, and we get off beat. Our heart gets out of rhythm. We stumble. We set ourselves up for failure when we do not take the time to create the systems that will get us where we need to go. If you want to go to Myrtle Beach, came in my mind just out of the clear blue. If you want to go to Myrtle Beach, you can walk, but man, it'd be good to have a car or even a plane. They have an international airport there. It would be good to do that, but for that to happen, a car is a complex system. A plane is even more of a complex system. And so, but the importance of that is that you create the systems that will work with little or no effort from you so that you can focus on what only you can do. If you do something more than once, create a system for it. And better yet, and usually a part of that system is that there's other people making that happen. And so I want to remind you that you are leading an organization, and organizations have moving parts. They're complex, and that's where the systems are. And I remember, I remember walking across the parking lot. I could take you to the place. Early on into my ministry there at Fort Mill, as things were really beginning to explode, I was hiring staff and things were going. And when you get new staff, you think you can get more done. You did get more done, but it doesn't make your job easier. It makes your job more complicated. And on it goes. And I came up with this statement that I've taught many times in my mentoring classes back in the day. As your church grows, you will have to learn to handle, and I've got it in the notes, you'll have to learn how to handle more and more complexity without compromising your core responsibilities. As I remembered, let's see if I can get it. As your church grows, you'll have to learn how to handle increasingly more complexity without compromising your core responsibilities. It'll get more and more and more and more complex, and you've got to deal with that without neglecting the core responsibilities that only you have. And so this is probably the most important lesson in some ways, because most of us guys and gals, we don't want to pay the price to make that happen. And it's kind of like, you remember, maybe you've read Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and the whole thing about sharpening the saw before you cut the wood. You'll spend more time sharpening the saw than you will cutting wood. And so most people don't want to take the time to do it. And that's the same way as a pastor. You'll spend more time developing the systems. And I listed several systems that you will need to have operating to have a church that is thriving and fruitful. And so go back and listen to the lesson. And you can't develop all those systems at the same time. So you take one at a time, the most urgent, the most important, the most vital and critical one that is needed at the time where it's your church. And you'll spend more time working on that than you will your core responsibilities. But if you'll take the time, I promise you, in the long run, your church has a much greater chance of being a fruitful, thriving church that is saving the lost and discipling the found. I promise you. And then the third lesson, I call this walking almost on air. And this is where I talked about goals. And a lot of times that after the first lesson, we see our new year, we see what we want to achieve, and we start setting goals. No, that's where you start building systems. But then once you get systems in place, then you do set goals. And most goals, long-range planning is an illusion. All right. I remember years ago, I had a lot of businessmen on my board, and they would want, Pastor, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? We need to have a master plan. And some of that is not bad, trust me, especially when you want to lay out your property and really use your property wisely. But to have a 5-year master plan, and I got up this morning, wars and rumors of wars. Pakistan, Iran lobbed some bombs over on Pakistan overnight or a day or two ago, and now this morning Pakistan is lobbing bombs back over that. Where did this come from? I thought we were fighting Hamas, and then you got some pirates over in Yemen, and they're shooting at ships, and now we're over here in Pakistan and Iran bombing each other, and nobody's even talking about Israel and Hamas. I guess that's a kind of a good thing. That maybe Israel can slide in there and do what they need to do. But to try to have a long-range plan, that's a bit of an illusion. That's a bit of a stretch. But goals do matter, and here's the goal. Here's the question. This is a question I ask every day. This is a question I ask on every project. This is a question, what does a win look like? That's hugely important before I start. But then to actually know what to do, then this is the question. What's the one thing I can do now that will increase the odds of success? What's the one thing? Don't wait till you get all your resources. Don't wait till you have the money to do it. Don't wait till you have the people to do it. Don't wait until you have the time to do it. Start building the bridge. Start heading in the direction you're going, and just build the bridge as you walk on it. one step at a time, one brick at a time, one meeting at a time, one day at a time. And you do that by asking yourself, make it your goal. What my goal is to do the one thing that will most increase the odds of success. The one thing with the resources that I have now, with the time that I have now, with the people that I have now, with what I've got in my hand, these 5 loaves and 2 fish, what's the one thing I can do with these that will increase the odds that I can get her done? Okay? And if you do that day after day, I promise you, your goals, your vision, your organization, it'll start humming. You will start being productive. Okay, now the 4th thing to do. All right, let's jump into it. And as I said, I call it trust God and work like the devil for our Lord. Trust God. At the end of the day, what we're doing is God's work, and we have to trust Him. You're going to never know enough. You're going to never have enough. You're going to never be good enough. There's always going to be somebody better than you, faster than you, leaner than you, meaner than you. There's always going to be, there's always somebody out there that's got the newest, latest, greatest. And so you just have to trust God. God called you. God's the one that put His hand upon you. And so you trust Him, but then you work, the way I put it, you work like the devil for our Lord. And so I want to remind you, and I don't want to come across arrogant or put you on a guilt trip or I don't want to sound like I'm, some super saint or some great guy, but I just want to remind us all that kingdom work is complicated and it's hard. Lazy servants are an anathema to God. I want to remind you that there's no easy fixes. There's no easy steps. God seldom, if ever now, there's a theological case for that God seldom, if ever, creates something out of nothing. Miracles are things that we give God and He does something with it. I mentioned the loaves and fish a moment ago. We've got to do our part. God's not going to do it for us. God's not going to send in a windstorm of blessings. We've got, if our church, if our ministry is going to flourish and prosper in any other area in your life, if you're going to succeed and prosper, you've got to work hard with what's in your hands. I want to read, we know this passage, but we don't focus on the last part a lot. But you know the story of the stewards, the good and faithful servants. But listen to the last part. We don't deal a lot on the unfruitful, the unproductive, the unfaithful servant. But listen here. Then another came saying, Master, here is your talent. The New King James says mina. That's just another term for money. Here's your money, which I have kept, put away in a handkerchief, for I feared you because you are, listen to this, you are an austere man. He's describing, Jesus is using this to describe Himself. You are an austere, a hard man. Listen to this. You collect what you did not deposit, and you reap what you did not sow. He takes from the strong man. He's expecting us to take from Satan. And He said to him, and Jesus said to him, out of your own mouth I will judge you, you wicked servant. You knew that I was an austere man, collecting what I did not deposit and reaping what I did not sow. Why then did you not put my money in the bank, that at my coming I might have collected it with interest? And He said to those who stood by, take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. But they said to him, Master, he already has 10 talents. But the master said, Jesus said, for I say to you that everyone who has will be given, and from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. My dear brothers and sisters, that is one of the laws, the spiritual laws of the universe. the church across town that's growing by leaps and bounds, the ministry across over there on the other side of wherever. You know, we can complain, we can whine, but dear ones, we take what we've got. You say, well, this is one of the most undesirable, most unfruitful place, most barren soil. God takes where he did not sow. He's expecting a harvest from us there. That's why he put us there. Right at the gates, right at the wall of hell, he builds his church. So, a critical thought: to achieve what you desire, and more importantly, to achieve what God desires, listen, is going to require you working harder than your opponent. And that's the devil. That's why I say, I looked this up, I said, surely, who said that? Where did I get that? And so I did the next thing besides the omnipotent God, the omniscient God. I went to Google. And there's no record. Maybe I came up with that. I am working like the devil for our Lord. And that kind of, people have to think about that for just a minute. But where I got that is that the devil neither sleeps nor slumbers. He's like a prowling lion day and night. He is working to destroy this world. And I know I'm only human, and that's where we trust God. We go to sleep. We have family. We have to rest. We have other things to do. I get it. But ministry, we are in mortal combat for the souls of men and women. This is serious work, and it requires work. It requires our full effort. Ministry is not for lazy people. It's not for people in love with preaching and being called pastor. It's just dirty, gritty, get down there and wrestle with the devil one soul at a time. It's hard work. We can desire, we can dream, we can see, we can organize, we can plan, we can do all of that stuff, but eventually you have to put your boxing gloves on and get in the ring and go at it with what you got. You're 120 pounds and the devil's a gorilla. That's where you trust God. It's like, let me give you two closing examples. I'm getting all fired up, but it's true. It's hard work at the end of the day, brothers and sisters. If our dream, and more importantly, if God's dream is going to come to pass, we got to outwork the devil. We got to outwork the government. We got to outwork society. We got to outwork those that are trying to destroy the church, every good thing. We got to outwork apathetic Christians, lazy Christians, people that don't care. We got to outwork our critics. We got to outwork those that are working against us. You just have to outwork them. You roll your sleeve up and you go at it. When you lose, you work. When you win, you work. When Sunday's over, you start working on the next Sunday. It's a grind. It's a day in and day out. Robert Strauss, speaking of success, he was a famous actor and then later ambassador, very successful man. He says, success is like wrestling with a gorilla. You don't quit when you're tired. You quit when the gorilla's tired. And that describes a ministry. Will Smith, I don't know what you think about Will Smith, but I listen to this video ever so often. I've included it, a YouTube video link in here for you. It's called the treadmill video, the Will Smith treadmill video. It's a little less than 50 seconds, the little clip. He's being interviewed. What's the secret to his success? He says, honestly, he said, there's people that's better than me, better looking than me, and he gives this long list of actors and all the things. He says, but there's the one thing that I've got that nobody else has. He says, when whoever I'm competing with, when we get on the treadmill, I'm going to be the last one off the treadmill, or I'm going to die on the treadmill. In other words, he said, nobody is going to outwork me. Nobody. And let that be said of you and me when it comes to what we're doing. John Hyde, the great Scottish evangelist, said, give me souls, O God, or I die. He was inspired by another great Scot, John Knox, who brought Protestantism and Presbyterianism, ever how you say those words, but he brought Christianity to Scotland during when Queen Mary, with that old Bloody Mary and all that stuff was going on. He prayed, "Give me Scotland, lest I die." You and I are not a John Hyde. We're not a John Knox, but we is what we is. We may not be the greatest. You may not have the most talent. There may be somebody across town. There may be somebody working for the devil that has more resources. There's people that's maybe even better qualified, but they're not willing to pay the price. There you are. Outwork them. Work like the devil for our Lord. That's the secret. At the end of the day, the guy that wins is the last guy standing. You be that guy. That's why I put everything binary, win or lose. That's why I say, let's run, for the gospel's sake, let's run to win. Win souls, find the lost, and disciple the found. Well, there you go, guys. God bless you. Let's go get it done. We'll see you around the bend.